Hello and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Paso Robles Mayor Steve Martin speaking. Welcome you to the regular Paso Robles City Council meeting for Tuesday, April the 4th, 2023. In just a moment, I'll ask our city clerk to read our hybrid meeting authorization. And then a little bit later in the agenda, after staff introductions, I will turn the running the meeting over to Mayor Pro Tem John Hammond, as I am attending virtually tonight. So at this point in time, if the city clerk would be so kind as to read that notice.
The city has returned to hybrid public meetings pursuant to AB 361, which allows for a deviation from the teleconference rules required by the Ralph M. Brown Act. Residents now have the option to attend the meeting in person or to participate remotely. To participate remotely, residents can live stream the meeting at www.prcity.com/YouTube and call 805-865-7276 to provide public comment via phone. The phone line will open just prior to the start of the meeting and remain open throughout the meeting to ensure the opportunity to comment on each item heard by the council. Written public comments can be submitted via email to cityclerk@prcity.com prior to noon on the day of the council meeting to be posted as an addendum to the agenda. If submitting written comments in advance of the meeting, please note the agenda item by number or name. City council meetings will be live streamed during the meeting and also available to play later on YouTube by accessing the following link, www.prcity.com/YouTube.
Thank you very much. With that, I will call the meeting to order and invite all who are able to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, led please by Councilman Bausch this evening.
Please rise. Face the colors. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I have scheduled for our invocation Pastor Christopher Cole of the Redeemer Baptist Church. Mr. Cole, are you with us?
I am. Let us pray. Heavenly Father God, we are thankful for all the grace and mercy you show us each day. We are thankful for the recent rains and for your protection of our community during those storms. We thank you for the civic and faith organizations that have stepped up to serve the unhoused population in our city during these times. We thank you for our police officers and firefighters who have protected us, as well as all the other public servants who have served us in many ways. We thank you for our city manager and city staff who daily serve our community carefully, effectively, and wisely. We thank you for our mayor and city council members who lead our city and seek the good of all. We ask your continued blessings of wisdom, strength, and protection to be on all our leaders and public servants. In this week that is holy to many Jewish and Christian persons of faith, we ask for you to remind us daily of your ongoing work of bringing light into darkness, freedom from bondage, healing into places of brokenness, forgiveness over bitterness, humility over pride, love into places of fear, and life into places of death. We ask for you to continue this work in and through each of us as individuals and as a community. Forgive and cleanse us of failing to love our neighbors as ourselves. We also ask that you grant everyone in tonight's meeting a spirit of humility that seeks to listen more than to speak, to understand as much as to be understood, and to pursue the good of all who live in our community. In all these matters, we surrender our will to yours, trusting that your providential hand and purpose is always good. We thank you for Jesus Christ, your Son, the risen hope of all mankind. May we find true shalom in him. Amen.
Thank you very much. I'll ask now for a roll call of council members.
Councilmember Bausch.
present.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Strong.
Here.
And Mayor Martin.
And I'm present. At this point in time, we'd like to take a few minutes to recognize staff members who are in attendance physically and virtually, and so the people of the community can know who does the work of the community. So if I were seated there tonight, I would look to my right and hope to see Mr. Frace. Mr. Frace?
Yes, Warren Frace, Community Development Director.
Melissa Boyer, City Clerk, joined by Shauna Howenstein, Civic Engagement Coordinator, and Karen Jackson, IT Technician.
Mary Sponholz, Deputy City Clerk.
Dita Esperanza, Capital Projects Engineer.
Christopher Alecco, Utilities Director. Chris Hua, Assistant City Manager.
Brian Cornell, Administrative Services Director.
David Dorsey. Terry Tanner, Bureau Manager. Mark Dallas, Airport Manager.
Matt Thompson, Recycle Water.
Ty Lewis, City Manager.
And Elizabeth Hull, City Attorney.
Thank you very much. Anyone else online?
Yes, David Athy, City Engineer.
David, welcome. Thank you all for being there tonight and for being there every day. That makes our city work so smoothly. It was mentioned earlier about the storms, and we all know how all out our staff went to preserve our community safety and our traffic infrastructure. And once again, we want to say that we appreciate that very much. We have a great staff, and we rely upon them greatly. At this point in time, since I am attending virtually, I am briefed. As with any council person, I do have the documents that are necessary to read and make decisions regarding council decisions. I feel that it's in the best interest of the community if someone physically present is actually running the meeting. So at this point in time, I would like to turn the gavel over to Mayor Pro Tem John Hammond. And John, thank you very much for your help.
No problem, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on with presentations. We'll first have the National Public Safety Telecommunications Week proclamation. Could I have Chief Nord and Supervisor Kate McKinley of the dispatch here? And other dispatchers as well. All right. Oh, okay.
18, as we call them.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, met you the other night. Yeah. I gotta tell a little short story though. Back in the 90s, when I was a fire captain in the volunteer fire department, the captains would take the squad home on weekends, and we would get responses and calls. But usually at night, they would usually give us a phone call. And there was a dispatcher we used to have, Pam Stewart. I don't know if you remember her, but anyway, I'll never forget one night, 2 o'clock in the morning, she calls on the phone and says, "John, time to get up. Somebody needs our help." And that's what you guys do. And again, it's a very, very important job for getting resources onto the scene as quick as we can, and anything else we need as far as other help and other things going on. So I'll go ahead and read this proclamation. Proclamation is for National Public Telecommunications Week, April 9th through 15th, 2023. Whereas the professional public safety dispatcher plays a vital role in the protection of human and life, property, preservation of law and order guaranteed by our Constitution. And whereas the incidents of crime, alcohol, drug abuse, suicides, medical and fire emergencies, broken homes, and child and elderly abuse are daily occurrences, unfortunately. Our safety and police of officers, firefighters, and public are dependent upon quality and accuracy information obtained from citizens who telephone the Paso Robles Police Department Communications Center. And whereas the professional public safety dispatcher is a vital link between the citizens or the victim and the public safety provider who are apprehend the criminal, save their worldly possessions from fire, theft, or save their life or the life of a loved one. And whereas the Paso Robles, fortunate to have a wonderful group of dedicated, trained professional public dispatchers, and whereas these professionals need and deserve the informed support of our community and continued maintained improvement of quality public safety dispatching services, and whereas the United States Congress has set aside second week in April to recognize telecommunications and their crucial role into protecting the life and property of our citizens. Now therefore, let it be resolved that I, Vice Mayor John Hammond, on behalf of the whole council, do hereby proclaim April 9th through 15th, 2023, National Public Safety Communications Week in the city of Paso Robles, and we wish to commend and dedicate our contribution of the professional public safety dispatchers to our public. Thank you very much.
So dispatchers, they take that first call when people are usually having their worst day. They take it when people are sad, when people are angry, when people need help, when people are at their worst, and they do their best. They do their best to help us, to help fire, to help the citizens of this community, and it is truly, they are the unspoken, unseen heroes of public safety. So thank you very much. Thank you for everything you do. We couldn't do it without you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Now I'd like to go ahead and also bring up Katie Mervin and Lauren Hanley to receive the next proclamation. Is she here? Anyone?
We also come bearing gifts.
Oh. Okay, the second proclamation is the Month of the Child and Child Abuse Prevention Month, April 2023. Whereas the Paso Robles City Council recognizes that every moment in a child's life is an opportunity for that child to learn, that the quality of these experiences may determine whether a child succeeds in school and in life, and that all children need caring and loving adults in their lives. And whereas April, Month of the Child and Child Abuse Prevention Month, marks a time to recognize that our community's children are precious assets, that the quality of their early years is our collective responsibility, and that we commit ourselves to ensuring that every child has access to high-quality environment at home, at child care, at school, and in the community that will promote their optimal growth and development. And whereas in solidarity with the We Are the Children initiative, we as a community of partners and leaders envision a San Luis Obispo County where all families can live and afford quality care of their children, and where child care professionals are valued for their critical role in building a solid foundation for children and families to thrive in the world. Whereas Saturday, April 8th, 2023, will commemorate the Day of the Child at the annual Children's Day in the Plaza celebration from 10 to 3 o'clock, San Luis Obispo Mission Plaza. This year's celebration, where children and families will have the opportunity to discover creatively, individually, and diversitily the arts while exploring community resources. And whereas Friday, April 28, 23, the county will participate in a statewide raising of Children's Memorial Flag to honor and raise awareness about the many children in the midst who suffer daily from abuse, neglect, and pledge our support for strategies that strengthen the families and protect young lives. And whereas April is a National Child Abuse Prevention Month, raising awareness and recognizing that every one of us has a role to play in ensuring the safety of our children, as we pledge our support for strategies that strengthen families and protect young ones by promoting our Normalizing Parenting campaign and introduce Children's Memorial Day in a virtual ceremony on Friday, April 28th at 1 o'clock with our Child Abuse Prevention Council colleagues throughout the California area. Now therefore, let it be resolved
that I, John Hammond, Mayor Pro Tem, by virtue of authority vested in me and the entire council of Paso Robles, do hereby proclaim April 2023 as the month of the child and the Child Abuse Prevention Month. See ya. Thank you. Would you like to say something?
Yes, she does. Thank you. I'm Lauren Handley, and I am here for the Child Care and Education Early Learning Planning Council. Thank you so much for this proclamation today and recognizing the importance of early care and education as the foundation of our community. The ARPA grants that have recently been awarded through small businesses, which are most of our child care centers and family home-based programs, have just served just under $1 million to 168 businesses and programs, directly impacting the lives of students at a very early and fundamental age. So we thank you so much for this acceptance today, and I have not only our swag back there that you can share with each other, but definitely invite everyone to wear blue on Fridays to support child abuse awareness, and join us this Saturday at the Mission Plaza, as you said, and we have some little artwork pieces for you to remember that the children of Paso Robles say thank you as well.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, moving on, we have item 3, San Luis Obispo County Animal Services Division presentation. And I know this person very well, Eric Anderson. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I am Eric Anderson. I'm the Animal Services Manager for the County of San Luis Obispo. A little while back, Mr. Lewis asked if we would present for your council a summary of animal services operations and talk a little bit specifically about a couple of issues. So I'm happy to be here tonight to do that for you. I know you have a lot to cover, so I'll try and be as quick through this as I can, but there's a fair bit of information here. So the areas that I wanted to cover tonight with you is generally an overview of our operations, scope of services, kind of what animal services does and provides, probably on a pretty superficial level, but we'll run through it all. Talk a little bit about the financial aspect of the operation, particularly how that relates to the city through service fees and contracts, and then look a little bit about what current dynamics there are in Paso Robles and how that plays into all of that. So starting with our scope of services, Animal Services has 3 primary areas that of our operation. The first is our shelter services function. We operate the only open intake shelter in the county of San Luis Obispo. It's our new facility that's located in San Luis Obispo between CMC and Cuesta Community College at the Kansas Operations Center with near the Sheriff's Department and Honor Farm and so forth. The shelter is responsible for receiving animals coming in from the community through a number of different directions and so forth. So one of their primary functions is the animal intake and impound. That's pretty much 90%, a little bit more is going to be small animal dogs and cats, but we do see all sorts of other animals coming in over time. The majority of intakes that we receive, again, probably over 90% is going to be either animals that are brought in as stray animals. Those may be animals that are picked up in the field by officers and brought in, or they may be animals that are found by the public and surrendered at the counter directly. We also receive a substantial number of owner-surrendered animals. Those are animals that members of the public are no longer either able or willing to care for and are relinquishing to us to either replace and rehome. A smaller portion of our animal intakes, probably somewhere between 5 to 10%, are made up of the remaining 3 categories. We perform rabies quarantine and observation for animals which have bitten a person or which have been potentially exposed to rabies infections, and then are placed under an observation period to look for any indication of disease and illness there. We do custodial impounds. Those are animals that belong to individuals who, for some reason, are incapacitated, unable to care for them. Oftentimes, they may be individuals that have been arrested with an animal in their possession. And so as they go to jail, the animal comes to Animal Services, stays with us. Potentially individuals who are hospitalized, or sometimes coroner's cases where there's no next of kin immediately available to take care and custody of the animal. The animals will remain with us till we can find them a placement. And then another portion of the animals that we receive are animals that are confiscated in association with either public safety or animal welfare investigations and are removed from owners or from the community to address those issues. We work really hard to make sure that the animals that come into the shelter are achieve a successful outcome and are placed successfully. The primary ways that we do that are return to owner, so placing the animals that are back into the home they came from, adopting them into new homes, or placing them with rescue and humane associations. That accounts for somewhere between 90 to 95% of the animals coming into the shelter have one of those outcomes. So our live outcome rate is quite high, and we have a success rate that we're pretty proud of with that. There are some animals that come into the shelter that are so physically debilitated, ill, or injured that it's really not a humane consideration to allow them to continue in that state. Some also are so aggressive or temperamentally challenging that placing them back out into the public becomes a safety issue. And so for those animals, it's unfortunate, but the management method that's left there is euthanasia. And again, that's about maybe around 5% of the animals coming into the shelter. So the success rate's pretty high on that. And then we provide veterinary care and services. It's not to the general public, but we do provide that for the animals that are in the shelter and under our direct care. Our field services unit is the second large part of the operation. Those are the officers that are out in the field responding directly to public concerns and animal-related needs outside of the shelter facility. A lot of what they deal with, the majority, is probably animal nuisance issues that has to do with dogs barking or other unnecessary noise issues, sometimes unsanitary conditions, dogs roaming at large and stray, and then animals that may have been hit by a car and deceased along the side of the road. But they also respond to quite a few public safety issues with aggressive or menacing animals that are running at large, presenting active public safety risks, as well as animals that may be confined but are under conditions that there's a reasonable expectation they could escape and present an issue there. They deal with receiving animal bite reports affecting the quarantine and doing some of the rabies control steps that we do out in the field. They respond to animal welfare reports that may be oftentimes injured or injured animals that are found in the public having been hit by a car, something like that, without an owner present. They do animal neglect and abuse investigations, and then where appropriate, we work with the district attorney to refer those for prosecution. They're actively engaged in rabies control, both for domestic and wildlife. Almost everything we do is domestic animal. This is the one step that we do have that relates to wildlife, and so we'll do the animals that are suspect or indicating potential rabies infections out in the public, help to capture, secure those, and then process them for testing. And then we do other agency assistance. That may be anything from, again, law enforcement is done a traffic stop with an animal in the vehicle, warrant services where there's animals on property that need to be secured so that law enforcement can do their job there, coroner's cases, and fire and other emergency response individuals. Then our last function is our administrative services section. They're responsible for doing a lot of the transactional business of the shelter, so processing adoptions, animal redemptions for coming in to pick up stray and impounded animals. They're responsible for doing all of our licensing, both over the counter, through the mail, and online. They receive and process animal lost and found service reports, and then also work to match those with animals that are in our system or in the shelter and try and effect reunification of those animals. They manage our permitting processes. Mostly those are commercial animal operations, so that can be pet stores, commercial breeders, and then also hobby breeder permits. We manage and issue assistance animal identification tags. That's for animals that are defined under the ADA as service animals and that are required by California to be identified upon request of the handler and keeper. And then they're responsible for our general record management and processing. So again, you can see our three primary areas of operation are field services, shelter operations, and administrative services. So this gives you sort of a breakdown on staffing in each of those areas. We have 7 officers that are responsible for covering the entire county. That includes the city of Paso Robles, all 7 incorporated communities, and then the unincorporated areas as well. With the administrative services, we have an office supervisor and account clerk that does our accounts payable and receivable. And then 4 administrative assistants that are directly interfacing with the public, either through the phone, over the counter, and other methods. With regards to the shelter, we have a kennel supervisor and a veterinary technician. She provides direct animal health care in the hospital or in the shelter and medical attention. And then we have 4 full-time and a part-time animal care technician that are responsible for direct animal care, feeding, cleaning, adoption processing, adoption consulting with the public, and so forth. Traditionally, we've relied very heavily on honor farm inmates and individuals enrolled in the alternative work program through the courts for alternative sentencing to provide additional labor to meet the gap between the paid staff and the actual need for staffing. That's served with a number of shifts covered every day and every week through those non-paid sources. Over the last several years, we have been noting a change in sentencing guidelines and availability of those individuals and a shrinking workforce there, such that that has been a much more unreliable workforce for us, and so we're struggling to meet some of the basic care needs. And to be honest, we may be looking at having to add some additional animal care technicians to meet the loss that we're having in the non-paid work staff area. With regards to our fiscal overview, just kind of running through the budget real quickly, this is using the current fiscal year 22-23 as a model. Budget for this year is approximately $4.4 million. About $1 million of that actually is debt service on the new facility in San Luis Obispo, which we occupied this last September. The remainder, then, $3.4 million, is directly related to our operations and our operational costs. To the right there, you can see the breakdown on how that is distributed with most operations. Similarly, I think as most operations, a bulk of our costs, the majority is actually dedicated to salaries and benefits and personnel costs. If you look at operations alone, that's about 2/3 of our operational cost, and about 1/3 of our operational cost is actually services and supplies, material costs, and so forth. Looking at the revenue side of that operational budget, then, so to accommodate that $3.4 million operational budget, we assess fees for various things, animal adoptions, reclaim of impounded animals, boarding fees, and so forth. That accounts for about a little over $200,000. The issuance of licenses and permits is close to $1 million, and then the remainder is made up of contributions from the stakeholders in our service agreement. And again, that's all 7 cities and then the county itself. So the distribution out to the cities collectively is $1.2 million, and then the county contributes a little bit over $1 million for their share of services and operations. This gives you a little bit of a breakdown on how those non-fee offset costs are distributed back out to the stakeholders. I have to apologize, the slide has a little typo, so the operational budget should be $3.4 million, and then the non-offset cost is, I believe, $2 million there. But again, you can see the bulk of the cost, about 43%, is absorbed by the county for their share of the operations. Paso Robles and Atascadero in the yellow and the orange and the pink there accommodate for about 18% each, and then San Luis Obispo coming in a little bit behind, with the remainder made up from the other 7 cities. So how is that service cost allocated out to the cities? We've worked really to try and develop what we think is a pretty equitable process and methodology for distributing costs related to actual usage, rather than a method that might be a little bit more arbitrary, such as just basing it out on population. So we're able to actually track all of our costs for our different operational areas, so our shelter use costs, field services, and admin costs, and also able to tag those to each individual jurisdiction. So the way this is allocated then is we'll look at, for each stakeholder, what is the percentage of cost for the shelter, field, and administrative function, sum that together, and then that becomes the base of their service costs. You can see for Paso Robles there, the 18% under shelter is the city's use of shelter services. City uses about 13% of our field services and about 10% of our administrative use. So collectively, that comes out to just under $500,000 as a base operational cost for the city of Paso Robles. Similar to our costs, we also track all of our revenue and attribute that out to each jurisdiction. And so we're able to attribute $127,000, almost $128,000 to Paso Robles as revenue accrued. That revenue then is credited against the base cost to determine the actual service fee. So the overall cost for operations for Paso Robles this fiscal year is just under $500,000. The contract service fee, once you factor in the revenue credit, comes out to $366,000. Right below that, you'll note a smaller number. In the last fiscal year, we actually realized some significant savings due to some staff vacancies and cost savings, and we're able to then at the end of the year rebate that savings back out to the cities based, again, on their proportionate contributions. So at the end of the last fiscal year, we distributed back out about $54,000 to the city of Paso Robles as their share of the savings which were realized that year. Moving into talking about cost mitigation and savings a little bit, there's two areas I want to talk about. And the first is just looking at our overall operational costs and how we might mitigate some of the costs there, or measures that we take to do that. First, there's two ways of getting to this, and one is decrease our costs. As I mentioned earlier, the bulk of costs are related to staff salaries and benefits and staffing costs. Because we operate on a pretty narrow margin in terms of our capacity of personnel, we have little ability to reduce that without substantially impacting animal care, public safety response, and so forth. And so there's not a lot to cut there. In the last couple of years, we did change the process of which we're addressing community cat issues. That's basically those stray cats that are roaming around in the community. This is actually a large issue within the animal care industry right now, and a lot of information that would be a presentation in and of itself. But suffice to say, for the purpose of this, the practice at this point is that we now take in injured, ill, debilitated stray cats, or those that are actively public nuisance causing the safety risk and so forth. But generally, stray cats by themselves are not taken into the shelter any longer. And I'll show you some statistics on how that's affected Paso Robles positively here in a moment. But looking at increasing revenue is actually where most of the benefit to reducing cost is, because that revenue goes to offsetting the service fees. License compliance is a big part of that, because that's, again, a large portion of the fees that we are assessing, and then fee recovery for animals that are brought into the shelter and so forth. So the amount that we're able to achieve that helps to reduce costs. Mm-hmm. There's a balance that we walk with risk of disincentivizing some of those practices, however. So, if we could increase licensing indefinitely, we could recover all of our costs in theory, but at some point, the cost of the license becomes a disincentive for people to comply with that requirement. So we have to be a little bit careful about going too high on that. Service fees with regards to the cities, and that's probably where the city has the greatest interest. How do you reduce your costs? There are a couple of methods or areas around this. One is a decreased usage. That usage directly determines the amount of cost that the city is going to incur. That generally comes through responsible animal management, people keeping their animals confined at home, having ID collars on them so we can get them back to owners and so forth quickly. The other area to decrease costs is, again, through increasing revenue within the city. And so increasing licensing compliance, if owners are missing animals, having them come into the shelter, redeem them, and so forth. And then I did speak a little bit already about the service fee rebate that was distributed back out last year in our effort to reduce costs and get that back to the cities. So this just kind of runs through a quick look at what's going on with Paso Robles over a little bit of time and some of these main cost drivers, particularly with regards to the shelter intake, which is where I think the main factors are at play. This is a representation of the total animal intakes into the shelter over the last 6 years or so. Per capita for the city, for all the cities, including and then the unincorporated area there. So it's a little bit of a noisy slide with all the different lines, but what you want to look at really is that deep red line up to the top. That's the city of Paso Robles. The orange line next to it is a Atascadero. You can see that the city's been a little bit above all the other communities historically, and then that started to narrow here over the last couple of years. That narrowing is a direct response to this community cat management program that we've undertaken, and has significantly reduced intake for the city of Paso Robles and Atascadero, and has helped to mitigate the cost impacts of service to the city here. This shows you owner surrender intakes for all species, dogs and cats primarily, but it could include hamsters and guinea pigs and all that sort of stuff too. You see Paso Robles is generally pretty close to all the other cities. Everybody's kind of clustered together. So the real issue is not so much with surrendered animals. It'll be with the stray animals we'll see here in a moment. Worth noting is that as we moved into 2020 with the pandemic, we saw a steep decrease in owner surrenders and also with general stray intakes. That's a dynamic that's been seen around the state of California and around the U.S. And we're starting to see a rebound from that now here a little bit more recently with shelter intakes increasing, decreases in adoption as we kind of normalize both in terms of people going back to normal work and life activities, as well as impacts potentially from the economy suffering where people are either not able to maintain some of their responsibilities or take on new ones of adopting animals. So this looks at our per capita stray intake. And again, you can see Paso Robles and Atascadero running a little bit above the community previously and narrowing here more recently. If you split that out, you'll see on the right side there at the top are intakes for stray animals for dogs. And the city, Paso Robles there again in the dark red line, everybody's running really pretty closely together, not a lot of variation between the communities. It's the cat intake there that you see on the bottom, again, that is really where this stands out. And you can see the impact of this shift in cat intake over the last couple of years. So if you recall the methodology that we distribute out the costs, our total operational cost is spread between all 8 of the stakeholders. So a decrease in usage on Paso Robles' part, decrease in usage on Atascadero's part, it's not really decreasing our cost. It will decrease the cost of the city here, and then that becomes absorbed by the other stakeholders in an increase in their share. So as it decreases here in Paso Robles, you'll see an increase in San Luis Obispo, for example, on their cost as we reallocate out the distributions. Worth noting on that slide too, when we look at the cats there, if you'll actually look at the scale to the left-hand side, again, it's per capita, but the scale for cats is actually, it's expanded, it's double the rate for dogs there. So you'll notice the scale goes up to 160 versus 70 for dogs. So the gap there is even a little bit more dramatic if you're below them up to the same scale. And then lastly, just a real quick look at licensing, because this is where the revenue benefit for the city is primarily achieved. You can see again Paso Robles in the dark red line there. Everybody's relatively closely clustered, ranging from upper 20% to somewhere in 50% range. We'll say that actually county compared to a number of other communities does pretty well. There's a lot of communities that are down in the 20 percentage points. Atascadero or Paso Robles running relatively together with everybody else, a little bit below maybe the median line there, and that's where there's some potential for growth. Our licensing processes are the same throughout the county, so there's nothing we do different for Paso Robles than we do for Atascadero or San Luis or Pismo Beach. So this simply is really a compliance issue within the city and within pet owners here. You find through this slide then that you're looking at probably around, 3 to 4 out of every 10 dog owners are actually complying with the licensing. We do try and increase that as much as possible. One of the methods that we do that is we receive rabies vaccination reports. So once we get those vaccination reports and identify animal owners that don't have licensed animals, they're contacted and advised of the licensing requirements. And that gives us some ability to be proactive about generating some of that license revenue. And then when officers are in contact with somebody in the field that's the subject of an animal complaint, if the animal's unlicensed, they're either cited for that situation or purchase a license at that time. So those are the methods that we have in being able to contact animal owners to push that up. So with that, that concludes the information I had for you tonight, probably a little bit longer than I was allocated. I'm sorry for that, but also be glad to answer any questions that you've got.
Thank you, Dr. Arps. Mayor Martin, do you have any questions for Eric?
Yeah, one question, a lot of information here. Will this be posted on the city's website so people can refer to it in the future?
I'm assuming, yes. Melissa says we can get that
Yes,
online.
we can do that.
Very good. Thank you.
And Councilman Gregory.
Yes, thank you for the very extensive report. I just wanted to, I'm encouraged to see the numbers at the end of the day for the city of Paso Robles. We're running around $300,000 a year for your cost after you credit back. Is that right?
Right. So for last year, with the credit back, it came in at about $312,000.
That's good. Well, that's good. I think that's really close to what we were hoping to have when we started this, several years ago. So sounds like you're doing a really good job of keeping the costs under control. So thank you.
Councilman Strong.
Yes, just a question in your report, in the services you offer. How do you differentiate hobby breeders from commercial breeders?
So that kind of starts to open a little bit of a can of worms. It's distinguished within the code that we operate under. I will tell you that definitions are a little bit fuzzy right now. We're working on revising that and tightening it up. The general distinction is a hobby breeder is going to be somebody, it's their own pet. They have 1 or 2 dogs in the house that they might breed, might have 1 litter a year or something along that line. It's done sort of accessory to residential use. A commercial breeder is going to be somebody who is breeding on a larger scale, usually more animals than would be normal for a pet owner. They're generating a larger dollar value. I'll tell you the intent with their code revision would be that a commercial breeder would be anybody that's achieving more than $10,000 annual revenue associated with the breeding operation, or that has more than the limitation number of limited animals for a resident. So in Paso Robles, that'd be 3 dogs. If you had 4 dogs that you were breeding, that would be a commercial breeder, even if you were making $5,000 at it.
So do we offer no services to the commercial breeders then?
I'm sorry?
Do we offer no services to the commercial breeders? I didn't see them listed at all.
No, the commercial breeders, we do have a permit for them as well. And so as far as services that are associated with that, the field services unit, we receive the permits through the administrative office. Those are processed there and reviewed. And then particularly for the commercial permits, our officers in the field are issued a inspection form. They go out and do at least annually, sometimes 2 to 3 times a year, an inspection on that location to ensure that they're meeting basic minimum standards and so forth.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilman Belch.
Yes, thanks for the report. Very interesting, a lot of detail. Question regarding abandoned animals on the owner surrender and abandoned. In 2021, was tangentially associated with pets that had been abandoned by people that had moved out of state.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that Animal Services track as far as that kind of data?
We don't have any, that's really a little bit difficult for us to track specifically. If we can pull some numbers that show animals that come into our shelter that are surrendered to the shelter by, say, a landlord, where the animal is abandoned behind. But we also have a number of situations where animals may be abandoned by the roadway, let's say, and we don't distinguish that it's an abandoned animal versus one that got out of somebody's yard and so forth.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And the last question for me, Eric, is it sounds like boiling down your whole presentation, it looks to me like Paso Robles, if we are responsible pet and animal management users, our costs will go down, obviously. So is that essentially what the message should be out there, to kind of be careful with what we're doing?
Yeah, in a nutshell, I mean, and costs aside, we always encourage people, like, responsible pet management is really something we want the community to practice. That involves things like getting collars and tags on your animals so they can get reunited, having them microchipped, coming to the shelter to look for your lost animal, all those sorts of things, keeping your fence in good condition so they don't get out and run around, paying attention, socializing them so that they're not aggressive and causing all those sorts of issues. That's just responsible pet ownership issues. It makes for better animal welfare. It makes for better communities. It is an all-around benefit. But ultimately, as animal issues get better, the need for our services decrease. And so the less that we need to provide services within any city, the less cost you're going to incur. Part of that responsible ownership also is doing things like licensing, and that generates the revenue that will offset that as well. In some other discussions I usually kind of point out there's all sorts of potential animal problems that the community faces, but in reality, all those animal problems are really just people problems that they generate there. And so the community and the people have the ability to really influence how this goes a lot. And responsible pet ownership practices is where that rests substantially. So that's a long answer, I guess, yes.
Okay. And I guess, again, as far as your new facilities, are you giving any kind of public tours or anything like that to show folks what you've got down there as far as a facility now? Or?
Yeah, the facility's open now. This is a look if you haven't seen it. And it's open to the public during weekdays and on Saturdays. And we did have a big ribbon cutting and did some back area tours. If there are people that have community groups that want to do tours and so forth, we do those from time to time. We'd be glad to accommodate that. Any of you would like to come down and see it, I'd be glad to show you around. It's it was a long time getting there, and has worked out being really a fantastic location for us, a lot of benefit, and is working really well. So we're really happy with what we've got, and I think it has done well for the animal welfare. I think it speaks very well to our community as a whole, all across the county, not just the county itself, but each of the cities, Paso Robles included, that we've all partnered to do this. We're doing a very good job attending the animal issues, and there's a few sayings, or a few people will tell you that you can judge a community by how they treat their animals or treat the lesser in the community. And this speaks well to all of us for that.
Okay. Dr. Eric Anderson, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 4, capital project report. Frida Berman and Ditas, who will go first? Oh, I guess if you'd like to. It was just a presentation only. If you'd like to, go ahead and address the podium, please.
Hi, Jeff Carr, Paso Robles. Thank you very much for the presentation. I just had a couple questions regarding the vaccines compliance report, licensing compliance data. When I see the licensing, I usually see that pretty much tracks with, I would assume that tracks with rabies vaccinations. But you mentioned that you do use rabies vaccinations sometimes to follow up and get the vaccinations taken care of. But I mean, I wonder if our licensing compliance is down at about 30%. Do you feel that our vaccination rates are down that low as well? And is that a problem that we should? Is rabies with any of the intake that you see ever become a problem? And then the other question I have is regarding, the responsible management, which I agree is the key point on trying to reduce the costs in the city here. And I was wondering what education was being done as far as trying to change or to educate people on how to better manage their animals and to notify them of the costs that we are incurring. I know the city, I don't know if the city has been doing anything in that vein, but I thought when we had our last contract negotiations that a part of the service fees was supposed to go to education, and the goal of some of that education was to reduce those costs. And I was wondering what has been done or what is being ongoing or will be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Eric, can you answer?
Yeah, so speaking to the question about the rabies vaccinations there, again, it is the numbers or the information there doesn't reflect vaccine compliance or the vaccination rate. While we send out notices to individuals that we get vaccination information on, it's not a 100% response rate on that, right? So people will get that notice and not comply still. So I think that the compliance rate for vaccinations is probably significantly higher than that. Still less than 100%, I'm certain, but would be substantially higher the number of people that are actually getting rabies vaccination and other health care. The derivation of that statistic actually is sort of a compilation of information that comes from the American Veterinary Medical Association that did a marketing study of essentially looking at census data, and they're able to calculate per household what the number of average animal dogs are per household. So that comes out to a certain percentage. And then what we're able to do is take that percentage, go to the census data and look at how many households are in the city of Paso Robles, then multiply those together. And that gives us a rough number of animals, dogs within the city, and then we compare that against the actual number that are licensed. So that's how we get that. It's not a there's a little bit of voodoo magic that goes into kind of making that calculation and assuming that the national data trends and everything are the same between different communities in terms of household dogs and so forth. But that's about the best method that's out there and kind of the one that's used industry standard. I think the big picture there is really to look at the overall trend, maybe not put too much weight into exactly what the actual number is, but where are we in the trend? Is it going up? Is it going down? Are we in an area that is relatively consistent with the rest of the community? Are we below the rest of the community, above the community? Be able to speak to how we're doing there and compare ourselves to other areas in California, I think, get some good information. But I wouldn't look at it as a real empirical assessment. With regards to the question about human education, a lot of our education comes from our direct contact with animal owners, and again, through our field services unit. So the direction that our field services officers have is those contacts with animal owners where there are issues that arise. Those are educational opportunities, and normally, most of the problems that they're addressing are resolved through some education, communication, and advisement on proper animal care, how they can do some of those things. And then where those problems persist, that's when the shift becomes a little bit more enforcement oriented. We do provide public outreach through community service groups and presentations, whether they're something formal like this, presentations to different school groups and school programs to try and encourage spay-neuter compliance and awareness with youth, hopefully going home, talking to their mom and dad about their dog. Is our dog spayed? Is it neutered? Do we need to do that? And promoting it that way, and then also helping them to become responsible pet owners as they grow. Community outreach through social media and some of our media contacts and so forth along that line. And then we have other presentations we do I have one coming up for a RAMS organization, a retired active men's organization down in the South County. So that's sort of our humane education outreach and program. We have another youth event that we're doing tomorrow in San Miguel on a touch a truck. So we'll have an officer up there available to the public, reaching out, doing some of that education and contact there as well.
Okay. Anybody else in the public, in the chambers or online?
No one online.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Thank you. All right. Now we'll move on to capital projects. And Ditas, looks like you want to take it first. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the City Council. This is our regular updated projects for public works roads projects. Oops. What? Oh, okay. All right, I guess the clicker doesn't work, so I'll just say next. So this, I think people are familiar with this detour route, so I'll just breeze through this pretty quick and just get to the meat of this presentation. The biggest difference for tonight's presentation is that tomorrow we will begin paving the Golden Hill Union Road roundabout. If you're used to using the detour route of that right turn lane in front of the Medical Plaza, that will no longer be available starting tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday through Friday. If that is your normal route, I suggest you do something different, like go towards Creston. It will be, Union Road will be open to all the businesses, and the Medical Plaza will be open for business, but only the customers of the Medical Plaza will be allowed to enter that parking lot. There will be a flagger there to ensure that only those people who are customers of the Medical Plaza can enter that parking lot. Otherwise, that right turn lane is not going to be available as an access. Again, this is just starting tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and by Friday, late Friday, it should be returned to the normal access route around the Medical Plaza. Next slide, please, and we'll just flip through these pretty quick. Again, there's just the Bronco Burger is only for businesses accessing the burger and the car wash and not a through route. Next slide, please. We still have the Enterprise Rent-A-Car access off Union Road. Next slide, please. This is the Medical Plaza that I alluded to that cannot be used as a through traffic, and there will be flaggers there to ensure that only the customers accessing them will be using it. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So if you go there now, this is an earlier picture of last week. All the ornamental lights around the roundabout has been installed by PG&E, and they've actually powered those lights. And so if you go there at night now, those light bulbs are illuminated and are available for the road work. Next slide, please. I think these are just more of the ornamental lights being installed. Next slide, please. So this is a video. I don't know if it's going to work. So we just happened to capture a large truck that's not supposed to be using the roundabout that decided to use it. So they just took a video real quick from the person's vehicle. And so you can see these large trucks are able to go through the roundabout, even though they're not supposed to be doing it yet.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. All right, so that's it for the roundabout. And after the paving of this week, there are still things that needs to be done. We still have to do striping, landscaping, irrigation, signs, and then cleanup. And so we're hoping that by late June, early July, we might be able to open it to the public. And since we didn't have too many construction work going on because of the rains, I thought I'd just give you a brief overview of our upcoming project of the Union Road overcrossing at Highway 46. Next slide, please. So staff prepared these various exhibits and literature that our staff have been using to take to our state legislature to convince them that they need to participate in funding our project. So these are just exhibits that we've provided for them. There's a before picture on the lower right, and then the upper picture is the after, once the road, the Union Road overcrossing is completed over Highway 46. Next slide, please. And then this is just an overview of convincing the legislatures that they've spent many dollars, 373 plus over $600,000 to improve Highway 46, and all we want is a little measly $60 million to do our project. Next slide, please. So this is the vision to do the overcrossing at Union Road. And this is actually first phase. Ultimately, it'll be a full ultimate interchange, but this is all that we're looking for to construct in the next few years. Next slide, please. And again, this is a visual simulation of what it will look like, the Union Road crossing over Highway 46. Next slide, please. And another view. Next slide, please. So what we're in the environmental document phase of this project, and that seems simple, but these are all the technical studies that we have to prepare. And each one of these studies are about an inch thick, full of data and research and narrative. Each of them have to be prepared separately, and then they separately get routed to all the Caltrans staff. There's special people, there's certain people in Caltrans who only review air quality. There's only certain people in Caltrans who do water quality, noise abatement. So we're dealing with numerous Caltrans staff reviewing each of the technical studies, but there's only one consultant preparing all these technical studies, but they're using sub-consultants to prepare them. So these are all the things that we have to submit to them. We are about 80% in getting them to review and approve these. And then once they're completed, then we prepare what's called an environmental document, DED, and also a draft project report. And then once they allow us to, once they approve that, then they allow us to circulate it to the public. And we do an open house, and we do a 45-day period of giving it to the public for their review. We receive their comments, we respond to their comments, and then finally Caltrans will sign off, and the environmental document phase will be completed. So these are just past workshops that has occurred in the city. And again, we still need to get to this phase. We have not gone to the phase where they've allowed us to circulate to the public. We still need to do that. And once we've circulated it to the public, that's going to be a major milestone for the adoption of this environmental documents. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Community impact. Next slide, please. So what are we doing in the meantime? We're trying to acquire funding for the project. And before we actually go to construction, we still need to do the design, also called plans, specifications, and estimates. We do have the money to do that. SLOCOG has set aside $1.55 million with the caveat that the city match with another $1.5 million. So we have $3 million that we're waiting to use to prepare the final design. And then once we complete that design phase, then we can go into construction. Caltrans is involved with the PSNE phase as well, so we have to work with them. So that process is probably another 12 to 18 months before we can finalize the design. So in, I think, March, next slide, please, we did submit a grant to the state of California for $60 million in November. We're waiting to find out if we're successful, and City Manager Ty Lewis, Assistant City Manager Chris, and Warren are also involved in trying to meet with the staff at the CTC to convince them to give us good points so that we could be successful in receiving this close to $60 million grant. So we'll find out in June if we're successful, and once we're done, if we're successful, then we can go ahead and design the project, acquire the right-of-way needed, and go into construction. That concludes my part of this presentation. If you have any questions before I turn it over to Frida for her part of the presentation.
Thank you, Ditas. Mayor Martin, any questions from Ditas?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
And Councilman Gregory?
No, thank you. Nice report, Ditas.
Councilman Strong?
Yes, and Ditas, I know that for the Highway 101 project, the CTC had to also approve the EIR. Are we going to have to go through their approval as well in order to get the grant money?
Well, by the time once Caltrans staff has approved the circulation of the DED and it's all signed and sealed and delivered, we still do need to go to the CTC and what's called a finding of future funding for the funding phase.
Okay, well, that's important because there was a member of the commission that tried to block the 101 improvements on the basis of the EIR, even though Caltrans themselves had prepared the EIR. So I hope that we are very much prepared to handle that situation as well. We did present this to the new Central Coast Coalition, our caucus at the legislature, and we had complete support from all of the legislators representing everything from San Benito and Santa Cruz counties all the way down to Ventura County. So hopefully we will have a nice big block of votes there at the legislature. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Belch?
No, I'm good. Thank you for the report.
Indeed, we are actually heading to Sacramento this next week to knock on the Lieutenant Governor's door about this very project. And, I think what's important, though, that people need to understand, this is a key puzzle part of the whole airport development program. Not only the boys' school that's been started and revampment, but also our spaceport and anything else we're going to do out there. And it's critical. If we don't get this, it really won't fly at all. So appreciate all the work you're doing. It looks like it's proceeding very well. And again, hopefully we'll be successful in that acquirement of the money that we're looking for. So, thank you. Rita Berman.
I'd like to continue with some parks projects and start with some good news. The Centennial Park patio shade sail was installed last month and is currently being used. As Linda Pleasure and Recreation told me, if you build it, they will come, and they are already holding classes outdoors on the patios, so much improved space. Next slide, please. Fire Station 3, you can see it out on Union Road right now. We're still scheduled for partial completion in May and substantial completion in September. To remind everyone, we are experiencing supply chain issues as well as delays with PG&E. And if we go to the next slide, I'd like to show a short video of where we are with the project. Why isn't it moving, Melissa? It looks like a fire station. Very exciting. Contractor Newton Construction and our construction manager from Wallace Group to finish everything we can finish before we need to take a pause and wait for PG&E. But if you haven't driven by, it's a beautiful project and we're very excited to have it complete. Other good news, the Uptown Family Park water feature, a state of California per capita grant. That work will begin in April. We'll have a new misting feature out at the park and expect it to be complete for the community in July. Next slide, please. Barney Schwartz Park pump track is out to bid. The bids open April 20th. This is completely funded by Rec Foundation in the amount of $500,000. We're expecting to break ground in June and have a grand opening in September. Next slide. In design, continuing, next slide, are our pickleball court complex. We have moved beyond the 50% plans, and the 90% plans are now in progress. And next slide, please. The law enforcement facilities at 4305 Second Wind Way. Building department's taking a final look at them, and we should be out to bid in the next month. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Frida. Any questions from council? Mayor Martin or Councilman Gregory?
Not for me, thank you.
Got it.
Nothing from me.
Thank you. Anyone in the public? All right. Thank you very much, Frida.
Thank you.
Public Works Director. Thank you. All right. So item G is general public.
I'd like to speak on that one.
Okay, Dale, go ahead.
I'm sorry. On the first part, on the overpass portion, I remain undaunted that that is not the safest or best way to handle that intersection at Airport and 46. And I contend that it should be a signalization, just as is at the Buena Vista 46 entrance. Works well for the college, works right for all those houses. And Caltrans is still recommending the truck route from the airport to be out Dry Creek Road and to Jardine and to go east on 46. And that's going to be just as unsafe as what they have now with no signalization. And I understand there was a serious accident at 46 and Airport Road this last week. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. All right, moving on then to general public comments. This is the time that anyone wishing to address the council on items that are not on the agenda tonight can come forward, and you'll have 3 minutes. We can't take any action on anything, but if you can go ahead and make your way. Looks like Dale, go ahead.
Yeah, Dale Guston, 5770 Vista Serrano Way, which is outside the limits because, unfortunately, after I retired, I had too many vehicles to find a place in town. So my comment is not on the agenda, is Steve Martin, welcome back. I remember when you were serving on this council in the past, and also your public contributions when the Methodist Church was destroyed with the earthquake. You stepped up and had a rotation of giving sermons. And I learned some humility from you. I know I'm not as great an orator as you, but for somebody that's as great an orator as you to express humility as you have, I learned from you. And most recently, when you stepped up and during the last election, you admitted that the parking thing had deep problems and you have certain regrets about it. That taught me some more about how somebody with your stature can still be humble. Thank you, and welcome back.
Kind words. Thank you, Dale.
Anyone else? Anyone on? Looks like we have one more. Okay, welcome.
Hi, I'm Lisa Majors. I'm a crisis chaplain for Resilient Souls. We are a nonprofit organization that's dedicated to trauma abuse survivors. This is Sexual Assault Month awareness, and I'm a survivor too. We provide programs such as Mending the Soul, Mentor Support Collaborative Training. Mending the Soul is a healing program that we have coordinated in this county, and we support anti-trafficking efforts and aftercare to victims of abuse and complex trauma, men and women. We meet the needs of abused, traumatized, and sexually exploited in all our communities through collaborative efforts, through resources and supportive healing curriculums. And we provide training, trauma-informed care training and resources. I'm part of the CSEC Coalition, Human Trafficking Task Force, and Trauma-Informed SLOW. And I'm here bringing also with me, she'll speak for herself, a member. So we're bringing awareness of the gangs and the violence that's happening around us. We come alongside, like I said, with exploited victims too, and bring them to safety. Last year, we brought 5 members through this county and brought them to a safe haven, not necessarily located in this, but transport them to safe haven. So I come alongside also family members, moms, dads, and with kids that deal with trauma. And I've been involved with a family here, the moms here, and they were assaulted twice on the Paso Robles high school. Second assault was, took him to emergency room. He's now homeschooling because he's been threatened to death and to come on campus. He's in home. They're in an apartment complex and they're being harassed and assaulted at the apartments. We're trying to help and bring a safe community. So he's being re-traumatized. So we're bringing awareness to that. Some of our survivors have lived through fentanyl. One of our participants lost their son to fentanyl, and right now SLO County is #1 in accidental deaths to fentanyl. Just want you to be aware of that. But I know I just want to bring awareness to you that we're here to make a change and have victims' voices be heard so we can bring safe community and wraparounds to those that need, and so that we can preserve our community to make it safe for all children to learn and children to grow up in.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for take the time and have these meetings. And well, my name is Norma Vasquez, and I really looking for opportunity for people who really want to care and see the schools, because now my son he's home and he's really with a lot of trauma. I've been dealing with trauma since I born, and I really looking for an opportunity to live and have peace and love. Here I am, almost a grandma, and I don't know what it look like, love. I don't know anything about compassion because I never have that. Like many of you guys here probably have good families. So I never have that. And I really appreciate the pastor when he do the prayer. That's what I'm holding right now. 2019, that's when I come up and meet God. And that is what I stand right now. Love of Him. And good people here. Good people really cares. And I really asking you guys, invest in the school, invest of these kids. Their track and they're over there holding fear or be in the game. Either way, life or death. And I got traffic when I got here. I have to run away. I've been running away. I'm here this time. I'm tired. I'm done. And I'm only looking for opportunity to grow up my kids. My son, he's 14. My daughter is 12. And I'm tired. I'm so tired. I've been living with a lot of fear. I don't know what is freedom. I never have that opportunity. But now I'm here and I'm really asking you guys, please invest in these town, in this community. I'm done with fear. And that's what I really need for my son. Grew up in a safety. In this time, I don't know who is the father of my son. I'm holding that. I don't know. And now I really need my son to grow up with love. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
If there's any questions.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public? Or do we have anyone online?
No, sir.
Seeing none? Okay, we'll go ahead and then hit item H, agenda items to be deferred. City Manager Ty Lewis, do we have anything that's...
No, sir, Mr. Hammond.
Okay, we're good to go. Coming in then to the consent calendar. These are items that are not normally needed to be routinely talked about in discussion unless someone wants to pull it, either one of the council member or anyone from the public. So at this time, we have anyone from council would like to pull? Councilman Couch.
I don't know if I want to pull this. I just want to ask a couple of questions, clarification for 6.
Okay.
What about the other pharmacies and manufacturers that are not listed in this settlement agreement? Is there something pending for that? And then second, follow-up to that, does the city have a plan on how to spend its share? And do we know what that pro rata share is going to be yet?
So as we mentioned in the staff report, there was a previous settlement last year with a handful, with a couple of people. This is related to the opioid litigation for anybody who's listening, so they know what we're talking about. Then there's these ones. I'm not aware of any other litigation at this point. The city's portion of this, I believe, is around, Jonathan, I don't know if Jonathan's here, 500,000, I think is roughly what we anticipate getting. And that'll go to the county on our behalf. And then Jonathan is already working with the county on programs and needs here in our community.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Strong?
Yes. Item 6, I guess just a question, or 7, pardon me. And that is, it says farmer's market, but when I read the staff report, it's really not a market so much as it's just an introduction to our local growers. And I'm sure that it's growers of edible foods as well as drinkable. So
That's correct. It's introducing the local purveyors to the community.
okay, so it's not really a farmer's market as
That is
such.
their name of the event,
Okay.
Councilman Strong. So I'm sure they're advertising, and I believe we have a representative of the event here if you'd like to make a comment on what the nature of open farm days is.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gina Hambley. We have Hambley Farms Lavender Farm in San Miguel. I belong to Farmstead Ed, or as a member. And every year, for the last few years, we've done open farm days. It's a group of 19 farms throughout San Luis Obispo County that get together to support each other through collaborations and through agritourism. This opening day on Friday night would be in the park, and we would get together. We'd bring products that we produce on our farms throughout the county to introduce to people coming through the park, anybody that's attending open farm days, and hopefully introduce people to open farm days as they're there.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else, Mayor Martin or Councilman Gregory, wish to pull any or have any questions?
Not from me.
Okay.
Not for me, thank you.
Okay, anyone from the public wishing to have anything pulled or has any questions? We'll bring it back then to the council for discussion and or action.
Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mayor, I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Items 1 through 9 then?
Yes.
Motion B. Okay. We have a first and a second, Strong, and then Dausch. Go ahead and call for the question.
Okay, Councilmember Strong.
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch.
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory.
Aye.
Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hammond.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, and then as we typically do, we'll have our city manager, Ty Lewis, go ahead and review what we've just voted on.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. So our first item is the approval of the March 21st City Council meeting minutes. Item number 2 is our regular reaffirmation of Resolution 23. Item number 6, I think that our city attorney did a great job of summarizing for everybody, as well as Ms. Berman's summary of item number 7, which is the new event in the park. Item number 8 also follows a new event in the park, which is a Firestone Walker Invitational Kickoff Party, which is scheduled for June 1st, 2023, near the Beer Festival time, annual beer festival that we have. And last item is item number 9, which is approval of the closing resolution for financing of our recycled water distribution, which authorizes us to execute in delivery of approving of financing agreement with the California State Water Resources Control Board. And that is the end of that report.
All right, thank you, Ty. Moving on then to public hearings. Item 1, conditional street abandonments for 23-001. And I believe David Athy, city engineer, I have the report.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, Mayor online, David Athy, city engineer, here to talk about a summary road abandonment in the California State Fairgrounds. So the project request tonight is the vacation of several unnamed alleys and streets that are left over in the fair. A lot of them have already been abandoned, primarily in the 1950s and 60s. So the action tonight, this will support a parcel map that the city is going to be presenting to you in the future for a lot split at the fair and for the eventual sale of a portion of Pioneer Park to the event center. The street vacation itself will allow the fair to expand, close a portion of Gregory Avenue, and they can carry on with their events. It's per the state street and highway code. We have a general plan conformance finding by the Planning Commission on 321. Basically, the streets are not needed for major circulation. We're going to reserve public utility easements for future use. And the vacation is also conditioned on the state purchasing Pioneer Park. So if the purchase agreement does not go through, then the abandonments will also not go through. So it is predicated on that purchase agreement. I also want to say that I had emergency services and the event center or state general services both look at these abandonments. They are in agreement and see that they don't pose a problem for the city moving forward. So just to orientate the council, so this is the fairgrounds in blue and orange. The orange portion is where the abandonments will occur. I'll have a blow up in a second here. This is part of what we call the Gregory subdivision in the late 1800s. So it's a very old subdivision that's been around for a very long time. There we go. So this is a map of the fairgrounds. So you can see the portion in green is the Pioneer Museum. This is Riverside Avenue up here on the left side of the screen. We have basically a couple rows. This was set up to be, it was a farm at one time. It was called Riverside Farms down here a long time ago. It was subdivided. There was San Luis Avenue, Victoria Place, Hortense Avenue. US Route 101 came through and chopped this up. Caltrans gave us the frontage road. We have a small prolongation of Hortense Avenue that needs to be abandoned. Basically a worthless little chunk of right-of-way that was part of a bigger road. And then several alleys that are in this area that ran behind what was going to be future homes. And in the orange piece down there, that is the Pioneer Park parcel, Pioneer Park area. So with the resolution we're presenting here to you tonight, we do want to recommend adding 2 more findings to section 2 on page 2626 of your agenda. Basically, we are going to just acknowledge that the streets are no longer needed for streets or highway purposes, and from the date of the resolution is recorded on the condition of the sale that they no longer constitute a street or highway. But just a little bit of cleanup there in the resolution itself. So your options tonight are approve the street abandonment with the recommended additions, deny the right-of-way abandonment and base that on your findings, and then or refer the item back to staff for additional analysis or any kind of combination of any of those three. So we recommend tonight option 1 with the recommended additions I spoke about earlier. And with that concludes my my presentation. I would be happy to answer any questions council has.
Thank you, David. Councilman Strong, Councilman Bouch, and then Mayor Martin.
No, thank you.
And Councilman Gregory.
No, thank you.
I have one basically that this is again all contingent and the sale of the property at Pioneer Park. And if that does not go through again, you're telling us again that it will just still revert back to the way it is now currently.
That's correct. So even though council takes action tonight, you're giving us the authority to file the abandonment once the purchase agreement is executed by the state. So the money changes hands. We will record this abandonment. Until it's recorded, these streets are not abandoned. You've only given us permission to do so.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've worked out with the state that as part of the closing of the Pioneer Park transaction, this recording will take place simultaneously. So we won't abandon these until we know for sure that transaction is going to finalize.
And is there any rough time frame on when that transaction might occur?
They are going to the state boards. They have a couple of state boards who have to approve the agreement. Those are scheduled for June, or for May to June. So we anticipate that it will close probably the end of June.
So it could be sometime this summer.
Sometime this summer is my guess.
All right. Okay. Any questions from the public?
So we need you to officially open the public hearing.
Dale Guston.
Right now.
I just want to make sure.
Hang on,
Just
Dale.
one second, Dale, before you speak.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry.
Just one second.
Elizabeth, go ahead.
Yeah, I just need you to say that you're going to officially open the public hearing at this point, and then we can take any public comments, and then we'll close it when they're done.
Okay.
It's a little formalistic, sorry.
Go ahead and open up
I'm
the public
sorry.
hearing.
Dale Guston. I just want to make sure the city still has adequate access for emergency vehicles.
Thank you, Dale. Anyone else in the public? Anyone online? Okay. Then we'll bring it back to council then for discussion and or action. Oh, David?
Mayor Pro Tem, yes. We had the emergency services look at this. The actual abandonment occurs on the east side of Victoria Place, which is the big gates on the south side of the fair. So they'll have plenty of room to turn around their vehicles.
And one thing I did ask earlier to Ty was that we'll still have access to the Pioneer Museum that opens up to Gregory. We still
That's
have
correct.
access through there.
So you can see right here on the map, I didn't point that out earlier, this dashed line right here is that easement that is dedicated to the Pioneer Museum. So they'll be able to come in, have plenty of room here to turn out, actually kind of a hammerhead kind of a look here and feel to the area.
Very good.
And that easement will stay with the lot split also.
Okay, thank you. And we'll close the public comment and bring it back then to council for discussion.
So without further discussion, I propose to approve item K1, conditional street abandonments 23001, City of Paso Robles, portions of Victoria Place, San Luis Avenue, Frontage Road, Hortense Avenue, Gregory Avenue, and unnamed alleys as amended by Mr. Athey.
Second. Okay, we have a first by Bouch and second by Strong. Any discussion? Okay, we'll go ahead and call for the question, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Bouch?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hammond?
And aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Moving on to discussion items. This is item 1, then the approval of Paso Robles Airport 50th anniversary celebration. And Frida, will you have that report?
I will.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, Frida Berman, Public Works Director. Tonight, we are asking that you consider approving and funding the Paso Robles Airport's 50th anniversary celebration. The Paso Robles Municipal Airport began as a Marine Corps bomber base and was dedicated as Estrella Army Airfield in 1943. In 1947, the federal government transferred the land to San Luis Obispo County to be used as a commercial airport. Commercial service continued until 1974. In May of 1973, 50 years ago, coming up, the county sold the airport to the city for $1. At that time, there were 4 businesses at the airport. To illustrate where we started 50 years ago, here is a short clip of an airport marketing piece prepared in 1975.
Generally, when people think about airports, they tend to think about the 800 or 900 big city airports and the huge jet airliners carrying passengers and freight. There are, however, about 11,000 other airports in America which are used by smaller aircraft. It is such aircraft which accounts for 3 out of every 4 flight operations one sees on airports today. The sign over this small terminal building says, "Welcome to Paso Robles." That's what we hope to do with this film. Welcome you to Paso Robles and its airport. We'll use a small aircraft part of the time to show you our airport, our city, and some of the surrounding area. As we taxi out to the runway for takeoff, we can tell you that this airport has only recently been taken over by the city, and a program for its future development is just beginning. Only a small portion of our main runway is needed for our takeoff. You pilots, we are sure, will be happy to see such a good and unobstructed climb-out area. We are now flying parallel to the main north-south runway. The air is a little bumpy, but perhaps you can see that all buildings, ramp areas, and facilities are at present on the west side of the airport.
And today, more than 40 businesses and over 700 employees make up the airport community. The Airport Commission has proposed staging a 50th anniversary celebration on Saturday, September 23rd from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. The free event will showcase the history, current activities, and future plans for the airport. Attendees will have the opportunity to see military aircraft, a parachute drop, and information on Cal Poly Aeronautics, the spaceport, and tech corridor. Ticketed biplane, helicopter, and C-47 rides will also be available. The event is estimated to cost $26,000, proposed to be split between airport fund reserves and general fund reserves. I am available to answer any questions you may have, but first I'd like to turn it over to Tony Gaspar, who is chairing the event for the Airport Commission, for his comments.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. The city or the Airport Commission has worked closely with city staff to put together this the outline for this event, and we put together a pretty good team that can pull this event off. We think it's going to do a really nice job of showcasing the airport for the city, The sad fact is most people in the city don't know much about the airport, and until they're invited out for some sort of an event, they really don't get an education and get to appreciate just what a wonderful asset it is to the city. So our job on the subcommittee putting this event on is to utilize the funds that we have available and put on a really nice educational and fun day for the city. So we're looking forward to it, and I'm willing to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Tony, I have one. Actually, are we going to engage the Israeli warbirds? Obviously, they'd be a big part of this, I would.
Yes, sir. Yeah, they're going to be a big part. We are going to, we're making a concerted effort to showcase the past, the present, and the future. And the Australia warbirds is a very big part of our past. And they're going to bring their big C-47 over and make a lot of noise for us and do some flying, so it'll be fun.
That's the way to be. All right. Councilman Browse.
Thank you, Tony. By the future, hopefully you will incorporate the spaceport somehow.
What spaceport?
Thank you.
Yeah, we have. We're going to be working closely with Cal Poly and our people over there, and get some kids over here and really showcase what's going on.
Thank you.
All right. Well done. Appreciate you've done it before, and thank you for doing it again.
Our pleasure. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Mayor Martin or Councilman Gregory, any questions? Real quick. Sorry.
Let's get some planes in the air. Let's go.
Yeah, nothing from me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions from the public?
Dale Guston again. I look forward to this. I had the pleasure at one time representing Golden Carriage Air, the only successful scheduled airline out of Paso Robles. But unfortunately, he went into bankruptcy because he was flying before the deregulation occurred of the airlines. And he just couldn't make it flying empty airplanes. And he couldn't hang on till they deregulated. But it was a pleasure to fly on his planes, and I'm looking forward to this part of it.
Okay. Anyone else? Public or anyone online, Melissa?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll bring it back for discussion and or action. I will make a comment that that was Chuck Miller in that video, and
yes, that was.
Thank you to Mark Scandalis, our current airport manager. He found that, I guess, in a back drawer or whatever, and that was about the year I came here. It was amazing. I knew Chuck very well. So, anyway, let's come on back and talk about further anything. With
and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I remember the purchase. And I think it's amazing that we've come so far that we can now spend 26,000% of that original purpose price on just a celebration. and I think it says a lot for how well we have done with something that the county thought was worthless. So,
okay.
And
do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
And that's that we authorize the staging of the Paso Robles Airport 50th anniversary celebration at the Paso Robles Municipal Airport on Saturday, September 23rd, 2023.
Second.
All right. First by Councilman Strong, second by Councilman Bausch. Any discussion? We'll call for the question then.
Councilmember Strong?
Yes.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hammond?
And aye. And thank you very much, Tony.
Motion passes unanimously.
You bet. Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it. Item 2, encampment resolution grant funding application. Angelica will be taking that report, looks like. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Angelica Fortin, Community Services Director. Tonight, I am bringing before you a request from the County of San Luis Obispo to provide support for a grant application that would fund the establishment and operation of an interim supportive housing campus in Paso Robles, specifically aimed to provide a pathway to housing and recovery for individuals experiencing homelessness in the Salinas Riverbed encampment. In June of 2022, with community feedback, Council adopted 6 goals that serve as a roadmap for developing the city's budget and to establish policy direction for city governance over the next 2 years. One of the goals prioritized was housing and homelessness, focusing on a collaborative approach to enhancing shelter service delivery and reducing the number of unsheltered individuals. In August of 2022, the County of San Luis Obispo adopted a countywide plan to address the same issue. With the city and county prioritization on homelessness in alignment, the county has requested the city's support in applying for the Encampment Resolution Funding Grant through the California Interagency Council on Homelessness. This is the second round of funding being offered through this funding source. In this round, $237 million are available to assist local jurisdictions with ensuring the wellness and safety of people experiencing homelessness in encampments. This is a competitive grant, and applications are being accepted on a rolling basis until June 30th of this year or until the funds are exhausted, whichever comes first. These funds can only be used for programs that connect people experiencing homelessness in encampments to interim shelter with a clear pathway to housing. If awarded, the funds must be expended by June 30th of 2026. The grant opportunity will allow the county, with the city's support, to focus on outreach and supportive efforts to reduce homelessness in the Salinas Riverbed. This would be a county-led effort, with the county applying for the grant, as well as administering, reporting, and monitoring the grant. The funds will be used to help fund a full-time local project coordinator that would serve as a Paso Robles Homeless Services Coordinator, establish an interim supportive housing campus modeled after the 5 cities' Cabins for Change program, and to establish a new service provider to manage the program with targeted outreach and wraparound services. Operations would be funded through 2026. The county is looking to the city of Paso Robles for support in developing the parameters of the program, identifying and providing a suitable site, and to assist with the coordination of needed permits. A campus in Paso Robles would be modeled after the Cabins for Change program, which opened in December of last year in Grover Beach, as a collaborative effort between the 5 Cities Homeless Coalition, the County of San Luis Obispo, and the City of Grover Beach. In consideration of the county's request, city staff visited the Grover Beach campus in January. Prior to the opening of this campus, there were no shelter spaces in South County. The campus that is there now was federally funded and built on county property. The site, seen here in red, is adjacent to county services, including drug and alcohol services and public health. Apartments are located directly west of the campus, and a grocery and shopping are directly north. The services offered, this is a 90-day program. Only registered participants are allowed on the campus, and they have access throughout the entire day. Services are offered on site and at the adjacent county programs mentioned previously. There is an outreach team that works with potential participants. Wi-Fi and computer access is available on site for job hunting and resume development, and residents are given the opportunity to assist with campus maintenance. There are 20 shelter units on site. 2 of them do provide ADA access. The units are intended for individuals, but partners are accommodated and pets are allowed. The campus does not serve children or families. They've identified that the needs are different than single adults and are currently working towards a separate campus that can focus on the needs of families. The units are 102 square feet in size and include 2 beds that can be folded up for additional storage space. Each unit has an emergency exit, power, AC, and heat. To accommodate the small units, the county issued an ordinance that established minimum safety standards for emergency housing facilities located on county-owned or leased property. The campus is designed to limit reclusiveness. So here you can see the communal dining hall. Breakfast and dinner is brought in. However, they do provide access to no-cook food options throughout the day for self-service. There are shared restroom facilities, 5 showers with toilets and 1 single toilet. ADA options are provided. And again, this is to encourage people to exit their units to prevent that reclusiveness. And they're also trying to combat hoarding. So each participant is offered additional storage on the outside of their unit, and these are the units that are used to store the items. There are several pets on site, and this is the shared dog wash station. They also have a dog relief area on site. There are 2 case management offices with the case management ratio of 1 to 10. Here, the camper in the background is the staff operations unit that's used for staff administrative work and meetings. This is considered a low barrier program. That means that participants do not have to be drug or alcohol free. However, they cannot use on the campus itself. An amnesty box is provided as a last opportunity to leave paraphernalia and weapons behind. Cameras are mounted throughout the facility. Local police have direct access to the footage, and alarmed pedestrian gates provide emergency exit access, but limit entry and exit so that staff knows who is on campus at all times. The cabins are numbered on the roof to assist police and emergency services as needed. There are no security guards on site. Instead, staff site monitors are scheduled 24 hours a day. The campus has a 9 p.m. curfew with quiet time after 10 p.m., and exceptions are made based on employment. There are 15 total staff, and the goal is to staff 2 to 3 staff members per shift. The estimated annual operating budget is $1 million a year. And here you can see the full campus with the rooftop numbers. Currently, as of last Friday, all 20 units are inhabited. Working with the county, city staff identified potential locations within the city that could house a similar program. Preferences for success include proximity to the river, transportation, and supportive services. The city-owned parcel in blue was identified as a highly suitable location. The paved location at 624 Pine Street currently serves as the most southern train station parking lot. The lot is underutilized and can quickly be modified to accommodate 15 to 20 units with a private entrance. The site is located within walking distance of transportation, city services, county behavioral, public, and social services. Due to Paso's extreme annual weather conditions, the county would not be using the pallet shelter brand units pictured previously. Instead, they are looking at options with higher insulation ratings that will make heating and cooling more efficient in Paso's heat and cold. This one here is being used in Santa Barbara currently for a similar project. They're called Boss Cubes. Also being considered is LifeArc. This is an alternative model that is not only highly insulated, but the units are modular, so they allow for easy disassembly and reassembly and configuration. This rendering provides an example of what a campus might look like at the train station site. This particular rendering shows 32 units. The Paso model would be limited to no more than 20, but you can see how it's configured with the staff space right in between. This particular model includes laundry services on site. Today, the county is asking for a letter of support to move forward with seeking the funding to establish this campus. The county intends to apply for an estimated $6.5 million and to seek any additional funds necessary to fully establish and maintain the project through December of 2026. This includes a local project coordinator, the acquisition of the units, development of the site, outreach into the riverbed, and operations. If the plan is not successful, a full demobilization plan will be included to ensure the property in use is returned to its current state. Tonight, we are recommending that City Council authorize the City Manager to provide a letter of support for the submittal of the ERF 2R grant to the County of San Luis Obispo and direct staff to return to City Council with a plan for implementation if the grant is approved. A plan for implementation would include details regarding services and options for designation of city-owned property and development fees. City funds will not be expended for capital or operating costs. And tonight, to provide additional information and to help answer any questions you may have, we have Joe Devanovic, the SLO County Homeless Services Division Manager, with us. Joe?
Good evening, everyone. Hey, and thanks for having me. And I don't really have too much to add to what Ms. Fortin stated here tonight. As she said, you know, as the Division Manager for the Homeless Services Division for the County of San Luis Obispo, I reached out to the City of Paso and discussed this encampment resolution fund and wanted to specifically discuss, you know, the encampment that we have here in Paso and in closer areas in the Salinas Riverbed, and felt that this would be a great opportunity to start really putting our 5-year plan, our countywide plan to address homelessness, and work with the city to address this particular encampment here. And I was very happy that the city responded, and we had some great conversations and leading up to being here tonight, and I appreciate that. I really just want to back what Ms. Fortin is saying with, what the county wants to do here is, and part of what my job is as a county employee is doing this very thing right here. I want to come and reassure you that we are here to provide the expertise. This is a complicated application that requires a thorough analysis of the encampment, a thorough analysis of all the budgeting requirements to build this, also compliance, and follow through on this grant if it is awarded. And, we in the Homeless Services Division, and if we're able to get a city staff member actually funded to focus specifically on homelessness, would work together with, your staff and your council to make sure that all of those things are met to the satisfaction of the council and the citizens of Paso Robles. And so I'm just here to promise that to you tonight and to let you know that if whatever you decide, we're here to work in the direction you want us to go.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Any questions of Joe from the county?
Yes, I'm looking at the figures. If we have 20 units, that comes to a budget of $50,000 per unit per year. Now, if this is primarily for people who are trying to get out of their substance abuse, currently substance abusers, I can see that can be a reasonable cost if the staff is qualified to deal with those particular types of issues. If not, if we had $50,000 per unit for a family, we could put them in an apartment, almost any apartment in the city right now, and probably furnish it for them too with used furniture at that particular same cost. Is there any thought of doing that type of program for the family units that through no fault of their own, except that they just can't afford current rents, could be helped?
Certainly, Councilman Strong, and while all those are great ideas, you have to remember that this particular fund, this particular grant opportunity has to be specific to the encampment that is in the riverbed. And I would say unless there is a high population of families residing in that encampment, this funding wouldn't apply in that direction.
And then this is probably appropriate. I agree. Thank you.
Sure.
Councilman Boucher.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. The couple of questions. Is there any thought as to the screening process? Who would be, what would the criteria be for applicants? How would we ensure that there are at least some hope of a high success rate, that at the end of the 90 days, they would at least make that effort to be substance free or abuse free? And second, well, answer that question. I'll follow up with a second question, please.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually that's a complex question, that deals with the nature of the social work that goes into this type of operation. And to be quite honest, as a county employee that works for the administration of these things, I certainly would be the first one to raise my hand and say I'm not qualified, to make the decisions on how that's done. I can invite. We have a member of that operates similar operations in other parts of the state. If you want to come up and discuss that idea of how do you screen people out and say you're a good fit for this 90-day program.
Good evening. Brad Fieldhouse, Executive Director of a nonprofit that does run a number of these sorts of shelters statewide. I happen to live in San Ynez area, so this is my backyard of sorts. To answer your question, yeah, I mean, housing, so getting people off the streets or out of an encampment is mission critical. That allows them to get a roof over their head, stabilizes things. So Maslow's triangle of hierarchy of needs sort of solves the basic needs of safety, shelter, basic essentials. And then once they're in a shelter, then you can begin to work on all the complexities of lots of individually unique stories. That is what happens at these locations. So it is case management all day, every day, conversations all day, support every day. And then it is a unique situation depending on what the unique circumstances of those individuals are. We are seeing 20 to 30% of folks that are getting into these shelters getting into some sort of permanent solution after this. It is unfortunate in California. It is hard to find, the rental unit rate is really low. So we wish it was higher than that, but that is what we're seeing. So we're seeing people get stabilized in places that are safe, and then provide that ongoing support. And staff at agencies like CityNet and many others do have people that are specifically trained to deal with substance abuse, career development, those sorts of activities, for sure.
Thank you. And then just follow up to that, this is probably a little premature, but as laudable as it is to get the unhoused into some sort of a transition type housing, that's a great idea. But if we just create a vacancy in the riverbed for other homeless to come in and fill that place where somebody vacated to temporary housing like this, at some point, if this goes forward, I would come back and ask law enforcement to share with us some ideas on how to keep that population. If the goal is to reduce the unhoused in the riverbed, I believe that's the purpose of the program. How do we maintain that? So we have 100 people, we'll say, in the riverbed now. We take 20 out, there's 80 there. If 20 people come back in, we're still at 100 people in the riverbed. That would be an unfortunate development. So at some point, I would want to come back and have that discussion.
Yeah, it's a difficult question, Chris.
Sure.
Yeah, it's what I like about this project, though. It's the hand up and not the hand out that I'm looking for in my goal. In other words, my question to you, Joe, then is regarding the support services that the county needs to do. I mean, that's huge. We can build it, right? But on the other hand, to make this work and make it function properly, we have to have the support, from the county and state, federal to that level too, to have the case management, the mental health services, all that really is going to take, the right path for these folks to get back on track. So is there funding for that as well? I mean, I don't want to go down this hole where we're, going to be funding this forever and not making a whole lot of.
Yes. So to answer your question directly, yes. There actually are funding opportunities developing simultaneously right now in the behavioral health sector. For example, there was, I think our county right now was just awarded or promised to be awarded a little over $7 million for a behavioral health thing. They call it a bridge house strategy. I was working with our behavioral health department on how to spend that money, and I included this project in that fund source. So the idea would be that we would use some of that money to allocate specialists to this particular project if approved. I've already discussed with TEMA as well, the Transitions Mental Health Alliance. There is another person that they are hiring. There was a position they filled about almost 2 years ago now that was hired to work at the Oklahoma Safe Parking site and elsewhere in the county. That position became vacant, and they asked if I wanted to rehire the position, and I said yes. And when I rehired that position, I want that person to also, if this project goes forward, to be dedicated to this project. And so we're already looking at having behavioral health and addiction specialists from the county assigned to this project, if approved.
Very good. Any other questions from Mayor Martin or Councilman Gregory?
No, thanks.
Steve Gregory. I have several questions for Joe.
Yes. Steve.
So, Joe, one of the things that we're looking at in this letter of support, Joe, are we supporting the idea of a 90-day program with some kind of a housing structure with the supportive of the staff to maintain and help manage their issues? Is that generally what this is, or is it specifically what we're looking at down in 5 cities? That's my question.
Yeah, I think the operation of this facility, again, it's going to be a mixture of what you as a city council recommend to us that you want. as well as the advice of the service provider themselves and their expertise. I think they need to meet somewhere in the middle on what is really, how do we want to operate this? And it probably shouldn't be, leaning too far in one way or the other. I think it needs to have some, definitely city council and public input in how this thing is going to operate. But service providers, again, this may be new for our community with the 5 cities project, but it's not new in any sense of the word. This has been going on in communities, especially around California and the West Coast, and in Texas and other places with larger populations of homeless, unhoused individuals. So to answer that question, I think there's a variety of ways that you can approach an operation like this. It's really how does the city want to approach it, and that service providers' advice, to operate it as well. And I mean, so we haven't really gotten there yet. Tonight I think we're talking about is there an appetite for this operation here in the city, and if so, we can go to the next step on how do we want to operate it. But that's a good starting point, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so I'll follow up that question. So I do like that answer because I think it's important as our community. We do have a successful 90-day program in our city already, and there's one in Atascadero. But I think it's really important to garner information and support and assistance for a project like this from those who know what they're doing here already, and not necessarily copying what they're doing, but incorporating some of their efforts with ours to make a better product or even join in. One of the things that I wanted to mention that's really important, and I could talk more later after the public comment, but I think it's really important that we do a couple things. Number one is that if we're going to help do this and reduce the homelessness in the river, in the riverbeds, we need to enforce the keeping the riverbed cleaned out after it's cleaned, and eventually get to that point because I think the real funding, the intent of this funding is to get people that are in the river into a home. There's a village of 20 or 30 homes where we can situate them right from their river circumstance into an existing residence. And I think it's really important that we keep that as our goal. I also think that we need to go into this open-minded and create something that if we're able to utilize certain aspects or facilities at one facility and then build another facility and make it all work together, I think we need to keep that open-minded as a community. So I would like to encourage that conversation and that meeting. So I like the funding. I like the idea. I am a little worried about 2026 when it stops funding, and we could address that later in the down the road. But right now, I think it's really important to get everybody on the page and fully educated about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So that's my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Gregory. Mayor Martin, do you have any questions?
No questions. I agree with everything that Councilman Gregory said.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the discussion and then bring it out to the public for any public comment on the item. Anyone wishing to address the council?
I do have one caller online.
Okay, we'll have to online.
Jan Albin.
Jan, can you hear us?
Hi, good evening, Council. Thank you for having this presentation. I think it's a great idea. I do have a couple of questions, though. Do I remember, and I'm sorry I missed the statement of, looks like there's 20 single occupancy cabins that are proposed, and with over 200 people in account in the riverbed now, do we think that 20 cabins is going to make a significant difference? That's question number one. And how long can they be in these cabins? That's another question. Knowing that we have Echo over at our Motel 6, and they have all of the resources and staff and everything, are we proposing that we create the same sort of staff availability to these 20 cabins? And I guess I'm asking, are we going to be working in conjunction with ECHO, or is this going to be a separate plan where ECHO has no input or association with this? And then at the same time, does that mean that the city then creates someone to direct this program and hire staff to work the program as well? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim. Joe, can we get a few of those questions? I mean,
Yeah, there were 8 questions. I apologize. I just can't even remember what the first one was.
The first question was, is it going to make a difference? Obviously.
Yes. I get it. 20, and the percentage of they're probably about 100 folks, I think, is the estimate, which I think is also the beauty of this application. I mean, in order to write the application, we have to really actually get out there and quantify and identify the spectrum of people that are living in this encampment. That's a requirement. I think that, and that'll help us really get a hold on who's out there and what their situations are. But yes, I mean, if you have 20 beds, and I think the next question was how long can they stay there? And I think, and I apologize, I think I called Mr. Gregory, Mr. Mayor. I thought that was Mr. Martin talking, but either way, I think Mr. Gregory was mentioning the 90-day program, and that is kind of a standard. And I think that has shown results. When I talk with service providers who actually, work down on Skid Row area in Los Angeles, that seems to be kind of when people go into a situation knowing that it's not permanent or it could never be permanent, it does motivate them to understand that shelter and the food and the services that they're receiving are limited through time, and it does motivate the ones who can be motivated when they come in there to make a difference in their life and move forward in that 90 days. Oftentimes, if the person is working hard to make things better in their life, and the opportunities through no fault of their own are not being generated, they can stay longer. And I know that's how I think Ms. Nichols described her project to you as well when you walk through her operation, and that's another common approach. So yes, I think it'll make a difference. 20 beds is, you don't want to go too big too early. I think you need to start off small to see the effectiveness of it. How is this particular encampment going to respond to this particular operation? It may not work. And then we can just go ahead and try our best for a certain amount of time. And then, as Ms. Fortin talked about, we just clean it up, and really no cost to the city. No harm, no foul, so to speak, and hey, we tried. At least we tried.
The last question Jan was asking about was, is it in conjunction with ECHO and their services?
Yeah, and none of this should be considered, none of these types of operations should be considered competitive. All of it should be considered complementary. So regardless of who operates this particular operation, I think that there is a feeder type of pathway from this operation to ECHO for some of the folks. I think ECHO's expertise can be used in some of the ways that it might operate. It may even know a lot of the people in the river, but obviously they probably go over to the Paso Hotel and get, some food and services there. So there's no reason for any of this to be competitive in any way. It needs to be complementary to be successful. It's a community. That's the whole idea.
Okay. Thank you, Joe.
Mr. Hammond, maybe I can jump in too, just to expound upon for clarity for Jan. So just remember too, this is a 90-day program, so we'll be potentially cycling 20 people through the program every 90 days in an effort to, try and get as many of those housed as possible permanently.
And they have to meet the rules while they're staying there in those 90 days too.
That's correct. Yeah, there are expectations, I think, that go along with this program. So trying to, that Mr. Devonick came, several months ago and provided presentation to the council regarding, collectively as the county and the municipalities about trying to reduce homelessness by 50% over the next 5 years. And this is a step, potentially towards that. Where we have a lot of ideas that are out there, a lot of people doing good work. This is a unique opportunity that would be funded by the state, give us an opportunity to evaluate whether or not, we can make some headway in 90-day increments towards reducing that population specifically in the riverbed. So, pie in the sky, if everybody was successful every 90 days, you would see, you could see, upwards of, 100 people a year or more, within a couple of years that would cycle through this program and find some sort of housing. The gentleman that were here earlier suggested that it's probably closer to 20-30% success rate out of that. But even 20 to 30% of those people living in the river, finding them a permanent solution, I think would, be a step in the right direction and demonstrate to the community that we're taking this situation seriously. We're partnering with the people that can make a difference to make a dent and improve, our quality of life for our residents, as well as the quality of life for those that are interested in finding a path out of the riverbed.
Councilman Strong.
I'm having trouble with the math. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. I thought it was 20 units with 2 beds per unit. That would be 40 people.
No.
Or am I wrong?
No, it's 20 beds is what, again, it's up to the city council. We can do more.
It's 20 units, is it not?
20 units.
Doesn't each unit have 2 beds?
No, not necessarily.
So the model in Grover Beach, they're meant to be individual cabins, but they will accommodate partners as needed. So they can have 2 individuals. So it could hold
up to 40.
But the idea is that you wouldn't have 2 strangers or unrelated folks sharing a unit.
All right, so it'd be somewhere between 20 and 40 then.
Good.
Okay. Likely closer to 20.
All right, thank you.
All right, we'll come back for discussion then to our level. We've been answering questions. Thank you, Joe. I think we're fine.
I think we're going to talk a little discussion at this point.
Yep.
So just a plethora of studies out there. I saw one that indicates that maybe 20% of our unhoused population is both dependent on, chemically dependent on something and suffers from some sort of mental illness. That's a vastly different picture than what I think is a common misperception that everybody is on drugs, everybody is mentally ill. I think this program completely goes in the right direction. It's not a broad-based approach. It's not going to hit every single person that's unhoused. But I think, hence my question as to what the selection process was. There are some people out there that are literally just that one paycheck away, became unhoused. I think that would probably have a much better success rate of trying to get those people some assistance. 90 days seems to be a good amount of time. There seems to be some leeway as to what services we could mandate as far as job counseling. That brings up another point that we might want to consider is partnering with local employers on what we could do to provide some sort of job assistance for these people as they exit the program. But I think this is a great step.
Yeah, I was going to say, again, our visit to the 5 Cities Homeless Coalition down there in Grover Beach was very impressive. And the program that they have is making progress. I mean, it's a structured way of getting folks who don't have a structure into a structure and getting them out from where they are. As mentioned before, if they don't make the expectations, they're asked to leave. So it's a way of getting these folks back on track. And that, again, it's a way that I think we should be using our tax dollars to help the people that want to be helped. So again, what we've asked tonight is to go ahead and discuss whether we want to have a letter of support, to the county. And you can see the recommendation in front of us. So any further?
So is this back to us now?
Yeah, John.
Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead, Steve.
Is it okay to talk?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm not in my hands. I agree with Chris Bausch, and I like the direction Joe is taking this whole thing, because what we're going to do is we're going to get everybody into a 90-day program. And what I want to do, what I'd recommend is just some flexibility for our city to do it a little differently. Not every other city has an Echo and Round that we could utilize some of their skills or facilities, and we could share what we do in this place as well with them. So I just want to make sure that as a group of people, as a community, that we keep our eyes and ears open to flexibility. What's the most important thing is for those people who run out of money, need to get a place right back away, get back into a house. That's really critical and it easily works every time. The difficult one are the people who are living chronically in the river and having a tough time with it. But I think it's very important for us to attack all sides of the issue. So I think it's really important that we're able to have the people to help those people with mental illness and with drug addiction and help manage those people as well as the people who are manageable. So whatever we do, I think you have a small, I like the idea of a smaller number, 20 to 30 people is a good size, and work with the county, with the grant, and figure something out, because every bed we provide, we're going to make it better for the homeless population locally and start taking that homeless population downward and getting people in their homes. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you, Steve. Any other discussion?
We ready for a motion yet?
Mr. Strong, if you'd like to, go ahead.
Yes, I'll move that we authorize the city manager to provide a letter of support for the submittal of the ERF-2-R grant to the County of San Luis Obispo and direct staff to return to City Council with a plan for implementation if the grant is approved.
Second.
Okay.
Martin seconds.
Okay, Councilman Strong for the motion, and let's get Mayor Martin on for the second. Call for the question, Melissa.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hammond?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our discussion items. On to item M, City Manager's Report. Ty Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Just a couple things to update the council and the community on. I think Deedus and others did a great job of kind of underscoring what we're up to in the transportation world these days, which is taking up a lot of focus of staff time, but we're hopeful that it'll pay off in a big way in short order. Next week, Mr. Hammond and members of the city's executive team heading to Sacramento. We're going to be meeting with the Lieutenant Governor as well as the Undersecretary for CalSTA, which is the State Transportation Authority, to discuss the Highway 46 overcrossing, as well as other transportation needs. As Deedus pointed out, we're seeking nearly $60 million in funding to move that forward. And so we're engaging every aspect of our state and federal government to hopefully be able to bring that reality to our community to really improve transportation and economic development throughout the region and state. In that vein, last week, I went to, or 2 weeks ago now, a week and a half ago, I went to Los Angeles and attended the California Transportation Commission's meeting, where I was able to meet with several of the commissioners and remind them about our pending grant, as well as our efforts to move that project forward. And then in the beginning of May, we're also meeting with community members, business leaders, state legislators, county legislators, as well as members of the council to host members of the California Transportation Commission here so they can have an on-site visit and get eyes on the potential location for that. I've been able to meet with the chair of the CTC board, which is Leanne Eager. She's very eager to learn more about the project and seeing how the commission can possibly help this project along from their perspective as well. So there's lots going on in the city, including tonight's conversation regarding homelessness and bringing some potential resources to our community. And we've heard the community loud and clear that the river is a priority and trying to find a way to address that. In that vein, Ms. Fortin as well is working to kick off meetings with the council and eventually community members and business leaders to begin the city's first ever strategic plan on homelessness. So we'll be working with that too. And from my perspective, this is a three-point or three-pronged kind of approach. I've engaged the city attorney to ask what other options that we have to be able to increase enforcement within the riverbed, considering the other laws that maybe don't focus so much on camping, but fire and time, place, and manner restrictions to improve that there. And of course, I think that the community is probably eager to know if we start, moving people from the riverbed, where are they going to go? Obviously, this is one solution, and we're hoping that maybe it's a proof of concept, and then if it's successful, we'll have a pathway to slowly, return the riverbed to the community as it was intended. And that's the end of my update.
Very good. Thank you, Todd. We're on to council business and committee reports. Mr. Strong, would you like to start?
Yeah, I'm going to echo our city manager on a lot of things, because with the CalCog and with SlowCog, I've been covering about the same things. Oddly enough, we were down in Riverside with CalCog for our annual conference and get together, and the California Transportation Commission was there, at least 3 members. So we met with them, we talked to them about many of our projects in the area, Highway 101 projects, of course, and also this one. And the stress with them and through these organizations has been the at-grade crossings at state and federal highways, and the danger of having at-grade crossings, especially near urban areas, because that's where you have a lot of volume of traffic and you create these traffic conflicts. And they seemed very receptive with that. We also met with them again. I was up to the legislature with the Highway 101 Coalition. And the Highway 1 Coalition also supported the Highway 46 thing, because it's very closely related to 101, being as close in proximity as it is to Highway 101 and the traffic that goes on and off 101 on 46, off of 46. So that's another area where potential conflicts, if we're looking at safety, and everybody is really looking at safety. We're trying to reduce deaths on the highways to 0 by the year 2045. That's an ambitious thing, because right now it's the largest killer of people of any kind in the United States today, is traffic deaths. So it's very ambitious. We also then, I was virtually at the CTC meeting and testified on behalf of our Highway 101 project. And part of the argument for 101 was it's higher priority for the region than Union Road. And we have to get that one approved so that we can get Union Road next. And that fell on favorable years, and our request was granted. So that was a good one. Those are the most important things I've been doing.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Belch?
Thank you. I just want to say thank you very much to Detective Officer Canizales and Chief Nord, that's able to attend a joint meeting of the Paso Robles Joint Unified School District and the City of Paso Robles. We had a community workshop last night on drugs, gangs, and cybercrime. Very sobering, very frightening report. Came away with the sense that especially parents need to be very vigilant regarding drugs, gangs, and cybercrime. I was kind of taken aback when I saw cybercrime on the agenda, but the police department did a great job in showing us just how vulnerable our young people are. At some point, I think this is going to move beyond just something that we rely on the school district to address. Maybe we can talk about this sometime in the future at our strategy meeting. But again, just I hope the police department can put on additional information nights, because last night was very informative, and I hope more parents attend. I hope more of the community attend. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Councilman Gregory?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for coming out tonight and talking about the homeless. And then I too wanted to chime in and thank the police department for yesterday's work at the school district. We're in a very difficult time with a lot of different aspects of our community. And I think we're doing a really good job as a community in continuing to face the facts, face the realities, and do something about it. And I just appreciate everybody's willingness to work towards bettering Paso Robles and helping the people who need help here to get back on their feet. So I just want to say thank you. And I've been busy talking about homelessness. So that's my last. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Steve. And Mayor Martin?
Nothing to report. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for being here tonight. On mine, I had one meeting, basically. It was with Tascadero City. Actually, it's their GSA. We're still working on their GSP, the Ground Sustainability Plan, with GWR, working through that process and getting there soon. That's all I had since the last meeting. Upcoming events, we have then, it looks like Councilman Strong just told me that the Youth Commission is going to be dark because of their Easter break. So they're not meeting next week. Paso Robles Senior Citizens Advisory Committee is going to be Monday the 10th at 1:30. Paso Robles Development Review Committee, Monday the 10th at 3:30. We have Paso Robles Park and Recreation Advisory Committee meeting Monday, April 10th at 4 p.m. Paso Robles Planning Commission meeting is going to be the following Tuesday, April 11th at 6:30 here in these chambers. We have then the Library Board of Trustees meeting Thursday, April 13th at 9 a.m. And then we have, again, the Paso Robles Development Review Committee Monday the 17th at 3:30. Our following meeting here is going to be on April 18th for the City Council, 6:30. And do we have any other comments or?
Just a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Strong and second by Bausch. All in favor?
Aye.
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 We stand adjourned. Thank you.